What's up, Vikings fans? Gabe Henderson here, joined by Pete Bercich to talk the 53-man roster. The Vikings just finalized that just here recently, Pete. And when you look at it, were there any initial takeaways or surprises that stood out to you?
Not really. It's kind of back years ago, you always had the camp casualties and the guys that had the salary cap issues and everything. But not really. I mean, Avion Collins was the one name that kind of stood out to me because you heard his name being thrown in there. You knew he got a lot of reps with the ones going into camp. So I think they took a real hard look at him, measured his potential, and for whatever reason, they found out that he just didn't fit. And the other big guys is Blake Brandel. And I bring up the rookie from Oregon State. And I bring up the big guys because they're hard to find. It's so hard to find a big man, either on offensive line, defensive line. And so any of those guys that have any potential at all usually will stick around or find a way to stick around. So Josh Metellus, I think, was a little bit of a surprise as well. I liked him on film. University of Michigan, played safety. We'll get into the safety position here, I think, in a little bit. But, losing some depth there. So I figured him to be a special teams kind of guy as well. So nothing earth-shattering, which is great news for the Minnesota Vikings. But a lot of these young guys are going to get their chance, even though they've had such an abridged preseason and no preseason games under their belt.
26 guys on the offensive side of the ball, 24 on defense, 3 special teams. But that safety position, only having 2 safeties at that spot right now. How do you see things shaking up there behind Harrison Smith and Ed Harris?
Well, I think you're gonna have to keep somebody close on the practice squad, a younger guy. The good thing though is with Harrison with Harrison Smith, you have durability there. I think that these guys, both those guys at those positions, have played for quite some time and they have a lot of durability. So in the past, they've been able to stay on the field. But it's anywhere else, like anywhere else in the NFL. You need to keep those starting 22 on the field. But I'm sure they have a plan for that. Maybe a veteran that they'll bring in at some point. I know that's the safety position is a great spot for a veteran type guy. We've done that in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if down the road we see another body added. But a little thin, very thin, so to speak, at the safety position, which is that a concern? It's a lot easier for a guy to go from corner to safety than from safety to corner. Let's just put it that way.
When you look at this linebacker position, though, of course, we know your Bars, your Kendricks, Eric Wilson, Troy Dye, you draft a guy like that. You usually keep 5 guys. That 5th guy, Hardy Nickerson. Do you think that was just a factor of experience over inexperience of having rookies, battling for that 5th spot?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the linebacker position even last year was the best we could say inexperienced. So when you can bring in a guy who has been around and been in this league, for quite some time, and he adds that level, so to speak, and I think he also gives you a physical presence. Eric Wilson played very, very well last year, but Eric Wilson is, I think, a very, very good 3rd down type linebacker. And you saw teams, I think, even when Ben Gedeon was healthy, they bring extra tight ends on and want to run the ball his way. So that physicality at that number 3 linebacker position, the strong side linebacker position, whatever you want to call it, I think that was the play there, was just to bring in a guy who can handle 1st and 2nd downs and be able to be physical. You're right. I think that was the play, to have that veteran presence.
The biggest question mark probably amongst everyone was the cornerback position. You lose 3 of your starting corners last year. You addressed that in the draft this year, drafting 3 corners, Harrison Hand, Jeff Gladney, Cameron Dantzler, no particular order right there. But now that those 3 guys have made the team, how do you see things shaking up there? You've been really high on Cameron Dantzler.
Yeah, he's a guy that I watched on film that I really liked, and that's, in the art form that is scouting. You want to watch. I mean, I think film, when I was coaching and doing the scouting, film is what we wanted to go by, because I think that's what they show. And I was surprised at his combine results, because he ran like, I think, a 4.6 at the combine and didn't really have a pro day. I've heard some stories of a 4.4, 4.5 type 40 later on, but because of the COVID, he wasn't able really to show what he can do. But you never saw him on film have a lack of speed. Now, that being said, that's the only concern. You look at his frame, 6'2", he's 180. Yes, he's going to have to put on some weight as he matures, but a guy that, that you just look and say, this fits what Mike Zimmer wants. This is exactly the kind of corner that he wants, with that long reach and those kinds of things, able to roll up press. He would, I think, fit this scheme very well. And I think for a third-round pick, he's pretty much a steal. So you're going to see all of these guys, Holton Hill. I mean, you are going to see every one of these guys. It's going to be baptism by fire. With Yannick Ngakoue, Unique, you're going to hopefully be putting more pressure on the quarterback, which is going to make those four guys in the backfield smile. So we'll see. But, yeah, you are going to be young at that position.
A lot of depth at the defensive line position. You talk about Unique Ngakoue. But the offensive line position, we all know there was a battle right there between Avion Collins and Dakota Dozier at that left guard spot. You hit on Avion Collins earlier in this interview. But speaking of Dakota Dozier looking primed to have that spot now that Avion Collins isn't on the 53-man roster, how do you think – what does that mean for this Vikings O-line right now? And you have
you're absolutely right, Gabe, when you were saying that was kind of the one position where you had guys coming in and coming out. How do you settle? And then you had Riley Reef taking on, having his contract things going on, so he was gone for a couple days. It's just a reminder that, again, depth at key positions is hard to find. I think the key is going to be between Dozier and Elflein. Hopefully for Elflein, he's had a great offseason, gotten stronger, got another year under his belt, and that move to right guard is going to help him. Dozier, we know what he is. I mean, he's a very, very good run blocker. But again, you can't have all pros all the way across the board. I mean, we had, back when I played, you had Randall McDaniel on one side and Dave Dixon, who we plucked off of, Arizona's practice squad, right before the season started. So, with this running scheme, the veterans, again, with any of these positions, veterans, guys who have been under fire, know what's coming, are familiar with the offense, those assets are going to pay off, I think, early in the season. And that's why I think Dozier, is going to be a good pick, and that front five is going to need to gel very quickly.
Rounding out the offensive side of the ball, 3 tight ends, 7 wide receivers, 5 running backs, including C.J. Ham mixed in that group, and then 2 quarterbacks. The 7 wide receivers, though, was that a shocker for you right there?
I don't know about a shocker. I think the biggest surprise, is Bc Johnson, and how it looks like he'll be the starting wide receiver at the opposite of Adam Thielen. And I think it's a nod of the cap to what Bc Johnson has done. I mean, he was really off the radar, came into this team, got a position last year, played quite a bit, and he's continuing to improve. And those are the trends that you look at. You look at a guy like Everson Griffin, who, as soon as Zimmer got here, he just improved every single year. I think Xavier Rhodes is another guy who, when he first came in, was good, but not necessarily great, but every year got better and better. And I think Bc Johnson's that guy. Will Justin Jefferson get in? Obviously. But another position that is a little bit thin. And by thin, I don't mean we don't have the talent or we don't have the ability there. It's just we don't have a lot of experience. And Bc Johnson is one of the more experienced receivers that you have. So, but it's just great to see that he has, added to that. And I think the other part of the whole thing, Gabe, is special teams in the return game. I know you have Amir Abdullah. He's going to be able to give you some juice on anything, a kickoff return, but the punt return, that's the part that's going to, I think, really require, almost as if you have an extra specialist, which I think would explain the extra wide receiver.
Thank you, Pete.